Ladies and gentlemen, how y'all doing today? We gotta talk about Galbrina. Today we got more content on Galbrina, and this video is titled, Is Galbrina a busted or weak beginner pull? Shout out to Juice for this video. We're gonna see what she gotta cook up in this one, but I just want to tell you before we go deeper into it, Galbrina is a very good character. I personally believe that she is a very good beginner pull. Now, when we say beginner, we're talking about people that are just hopping onto the game. They don't have a wide roster. They don't have a lot of characters. And I think Galbrina is going to be a good option for those players. Now, we're going to go into the video and see what Juice has to say, but I just want to get my thoughts out before we hop in there. First off, I think Galbrina is a very strong DPS character that's going to be a hyper carry, and she's going to be able to deal her burst and her damage really quickly. That's a big factor to why I think she's really good. I also think that she's going to have a lot of options for people to pair her up with. You're going to be able to pair her up with Yuno. So if you're just starting out before she drops and you happen to have Yuno, you can pair her up with Yuno. You can pair her up with Mortifi. You can pair her up with all the other fusion characters pretty much. Brant, Lupa, Shangli, and she's going to be able to slot herself into the mono fusion team, which is pretty damn good. That's already given her, what, like 5 characters, 6 characters you can pair her up with. And then she has Shi Yuan, which is coming relatively soon right after her, which is her best in slot partner. That is why I think she's going to be a very good option for beginner players. The fact that she's relatively easy to play, the fact that she's a hyper carry and she's going to be able to get those new beginner players and take them to the next level. And overall, her gameplay is pretty damn simple. So those are my particular thoughts after having played the character quite a bit, after having seen the gameplay quite a bit, and after, theory crafting and breaking down all there is to know about the character in the beta servers. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and see what Juice cooked up.
Is Galbrina a good beginner pull or not? Let's talk about it. My name is Juice, and let's get into it.
Okay.
So, let's say you're just starting out, and you're considering getting Galbrina. Is she going to be an actually good investment for you as a new player, or are there better 5 stars that you can go for instead? Now, in my opinion, I think Galbrina honestly has quite tough competition in this regard. She's coming hot off of the heels of Yuno and Augusta, both of
What the hell just happened? Hello?
both of which are honestly very viable beginner pulls, due to numerous different reasons. And we of course have absolute bangers in the game like Phoebe, that are literally able to form teams out of completely free characters.
Okay, so here's the thing. When I think of beginner pull, right, I don't consider people that already have characters like Peeps, people that already have characters like Augusta, right? I consider this people that are either starting off in 2.7 or people that started around, the second half of 2.6, right? And even if you have a character like Yuno and Augusta, I don't see, Galbrina as a bad option, so you can start forming your second team. But if you are starting off in 2.6 and you happen to have, Augusta and Yuno, you might want to save your ass to make sure you can get a better team composition later down the line. But if you already have characters like Peeps, which hasn't re-ran in forever, you've had the opportunity to get yourself multiple characters, right? And I also don't think that Peeps is a better option as a DPS when you compare her directly to Galbrina, because Galbrina does deal more damage. She has a lot more options and premium characters that are going to enable her team to do pretty damn good. And when it comes to Peeps, you're either going to run her as a support with Zani, or you're going to run her as a main DPS with Spectra Rover. So that comparison, I don't know, right? We're considering Galbrina as a beginner pool option, right?
So, how does Galbrina hold up against those characters, and is she going to be worthwhile if you're somebody who's just starting out? Well, I think that if you're literally just starting and you don't really have many DPSs, Galbrina's value ends up being pretty high, but this is more so by nature of you not having any strong DPSs.
Agree on that, right? If we're comparing it from the beginner point of view and you don't have a lot of DPSs, I think Galbrina's value is pretty damn high. And I dare say that even if you had a couple of DPSs, right, and we're just considering the fact that you had the pull currency now that you're struggling to get it, Galbrina's value is pretty good. She is definitely one of the top damage dealers in the game when we're comparing everybody with their, premium teams and signature weapons. Galbrina is hands down a very strong character. She is going to be one of the strongest characters out there when it comes to team compositions, and she is a character that has everything that a new character should have, everything you'd want them to have. She has a follow-up attack. She has the ability to close gaps. She has the ability to attack in range. So all those pesky bosses that be moving all over the field, that be getting away from you, she has no problem following up, chasing them, and hitting them from range to deliver her damage. So you will be able to pretty much tackle every single current sort of content in the game, which is really, really valuable. And some other characters out there don't have the ability to do that as easily as what I've seen Galbrina be able to do.
The thing is, the more progressed your account is and the more main DPSs you have, the less and less you're going to need more DPSs, especially if you're somebody that already has triple fusion or has generally just got good investment into the fusion team already.
That's also another thing, but once again, I feel that we're kind of, going in different directions, right? If we're talking about an account that already has the fusion team, that's not a beginner account, but yes, if you already have the fusion team, I don't think you should invest in Galbrina, and it's not because Galbrina herself is not good and the fusion team is the absolute best team in the game, but simply because I feel that people should build their roster, build their characters, and build different elemental units and different elemental teams. So if you already have 3 premium characters added as the premium fusion team, going for another fusion unit is not ideal. But if we're sticking to the topic of beginner players, I do think she's an amazing value unit.
But if you don't have any modicum of investment in this regard, then Galbrina ends up being a pretty good first pickup. Another thing is that she's actually quite reliable to get, because every 2.x DPS is a really good choice. Some of them are more expensive than others in terms of cost, and that is something that we have to discuss with Galbrina too. However, generally speaking, they all have a really good damage baseline, and you can safely invest into basically all of them. In Galbrina's case, I personally believe that she's going to be a pretty safe character to get, because she's a traditional hyper carry. Yes, she does have abilities that are based around echo skill damage, but I personally don't think that archetype is anywhere near as niche as something like negative status is.
So, here's the thing. So far, we have seen that negative statuses are a little bit more niche, but that's because we haven't expanded the roster. Now, I think that eventually maybe either Kura completely forgets and stops releasing character with negative status effects, or they start releasing more and then it will no longer be that niche, right? When it comes to echo skill damage, I do see it as something that's going to be more common because we already have several characters that revolve around the whole echo damage or, echo skill damage system. So I do see that being a thing, but there's more to Galbrina than just that. She does deal heavy attack damage. She can be paired around with a lot of characters, and not just paired with these characters as like suboptimal and like crappy compositions. She can do very damn well with her main DPS supporter, which is Shi Yuan. She's going to be dealing some insane damage as an absolute hyper carry comp. But if you pair her up with like a Brandt and a Shangli, she's now going to work as like a triple kind of DPS comp where everybody's going to be dealing a bit of damage and it's still going to clear everything with no problem whatsoever beautifully. So I think on that regard, you shouldn't look at her and be like, damn, but she deals echo damage and see it as a problem, because I do see this being a less niche type of damage typing than, negative statuses.
Look at Frolova. While she does really enjoy Cantarella, a character that's able to provide her with many echo-based benefits, she's still completely fine just using Donjin for her outro skill, because it gives some havoc damage amp. And sure, that's something crazy, but it's good enough for her. And I personally expect Galbrina to follow suit. You're likely just going to be able to stick more Teffy with her and get by just fine.
You will be able to stick Mortefi with her and she'll be doing just fine, kind of like we have Augusta, even though Mortefi is like perfectly slotted on Augusta and not so much on her, she's still going to be able to take a lot of benefits from Teffy. And then one thing that I do want to point out that maybe Juice is going to cover is that Galbrina's value for beginner, players, beginner pools, doesn't just go when it comes to her. It's not just about her. In her banner, if I'm not mistaken, you are going to be able to get Mortefi and Sanhua. So if you're a beginner player, those are the 4 stars that are on rate up on that banner. So as you summon for Galbrina, you can get some Mortefi dupes, enabling your Mortefi to get stronger, enabling your Sanhua to get stronger. So overall, her banner has a lot of value. I do gotta say that her banner has a lot of value for beginner players, and pulling on that banner can set your account for success, as it will give you some dupes on your Teffy and your Sanhua, which are characters that you're going to rock on a lot of teams until you eventually build up your roster a lot more and get your premium teams going.
Going to be your absolute strongest option? No, not by any means, but I think that if you're lacking a new DPS to start the game with, then you're gonna be fine anyway, and it's definitely gonna feel stronger than whatever else you're gonna have available to you. The only other thing that you can really do if you're just starting out is after getting your Verena off standard, you'd want to get an Encore then, otherwise you're just not really gonna have access to a strong DPS. So she ends up being a good beginner pull simply just because DPSs are inherently good to pick up while you're just starting out. However, what about her actual cost? Is she a good DPS to get in particular, or is there somebody else that would generally be a bit more desirable? And there's also the consideration that Lupa's going to be on banners next to her.
Okay, so regarding that topic, right, I feel that we got to stay on topic where the whole gist of this video, right, is beginner pulls, right? I will tell you this personally right now. Even though the longevity of a character like Lupa and maybe even Shi Yuan will be longer and maybe even better because those are support sub DPSs that will be able to support characters for a lot longer than maybe even Galbrina will be a main meta DPS. If you're just starting out, if you're a beginner, which is the whole concept of this video, why would you pull Lupa, right? You're not going to have any other fusion DPS unless you're running Encore, and Encore Lupa is like playing with rocks. So you're not going to enjoy that, right? If you're going to skip her and get Shi Yuan, you're not going to have a good time. And if you're going to skip all of those and get Zani, you're going to be in a very bad position because Zani plays like an absolute brick without having your peeps, okay? So if we're talking about beginner players, if we're talking about 2.7, we're talking about building your roster, I think she has the most value. Now, you could say, well, I could just pull Lupa and eventually get another fusion DPS. Yes, you can. And Lupa will be great for that fusion DPS. But until you get him, you're going to be stuck with a character that will not be able to carry your account, will not be able to clear a lot of content because Lupa's damage is just not that good at all. And the same goes for Shi Yuan, right? So personally, if you're a beginner player, I think that Galbrina's damage is absolutely the best, and her value is much better. Now, if we're talking about, yo, what about getting Galbrina and Lupa, and then we talk about what would happen a year down the line where you could have pulled another 3 characters, and 2 of them could have been fusion units, maybe your Lupa could have been a better investment, but I'm sure by then Lupa could have reran a couple of times, so I don't know.
Well, I think that Galbrena's in a position where she's not exactly cost-friendly, but she's not exactly expensive either. What I mean by this is that if you've been playing the game for any amount of time, it's likely that you're going to be able to give Galbrina a somewhat decent team. What I mean by this is that you have multiple options you can solve with her, but most of her team options are 5 stars. That's more so just because WoA doesn't really produce 4-star characters these days, but either way, the point still stands, because there are DPSs out there that are able to utilize 4 stars better than Galbrina would be able to utilize 4 stars. In her case, you ideally want either Branton Lupa in general, so that you can have Lupa into more Tefi, or you would get Cho Yuan later on, who's going to be releasing sometime after Galbrina's release. In any of those given situations, Galbrina is going to end up feeling quite strong, and is going to have a pretty strong team. So, does that mean that if you're new, you should pull for Lupa and Galbrina if you're able to? Or should you even consider just saving up for Cho Yuan down the line whenever he drops eventually?
I'm gonna be honest, if you're brand new, I would, if you're considering pulling Galbrina, that statement she just made between pulling Galbrina and Lupa, I wouldn't do it. Now, once again, we're looking at the situation where, yes, Lupa holds a lot of value for all fusion teams, but I personally believe in getting yourself your premium team. So if you're a brand new player, you're just starting out, you have all the maps to explore, you have all these events going on, all these things that you might have missed that you're able to do now. I will get yourself Galbrina, right? I would get yourself SK from that beginner banner that you're able to choose, and then I would go ahead and wait and then get Shi Yuan. That means that by the end of 2.7, you would have an absolute premium team that will definitely carry you anywhere in the game. That one team alone will be able to clear any content you put it in. And at that point, you can begin saving for the upcoming units and make your, decisions regarding what you want to get. In 2.8, you have another option of a new character instead of, going in into getting Lupa, getting yourself into a brand new meta with the 2.8 character, or even waiting to see what they tease us with in the upcoming 3.0 and forward characters, which we will be able to see those characters during the 2.8 banner duration at some point. So personally, I don't think getting Lupa and Galbrina is the play. I would rather get Galbrina and Shi Yuan, get them going smooth with your shorekeeper, and boom, your account is starting to move in the right direction.
Okay, so I would say that it kind of depends. The thing is, 2.7's banners in general are very niche. The banners and characters on offer are strong, however, they're definitely stronger or weaker depending on what direction you want to take your account in. Yes, you could get Galbrina just so that you would have a strong DPS to carry you through the early game and just have a good character in general. She would never necessarily fade for you, and you could always use Mortefi Shorekeeper. That is going under the assumption that you're picking Shorekeeper as your 1.x 5-star character that you're able to pull for from the beginner wish.
Yeah,
however,
you should.
Investing more into Galbrina, here's the thing. There's two possible avenues that you can take here. You get Galbrina, you build her up, and you use Mortefi for the time being, and then you get Cho Yuen. This will be lower cost than waiting to get more Fusion 5-stars. This is because you're likely able to use Shorekeeper on the end, who's permanently available from the 1.x beginner wish if you're somebody that's new. Substitute her for Verena if you didn't pick her up as your first 5-star. And then you're gonna have yourself a very strong and complete team as your first proper core. Yeah. However, if you choose to invest into Lupa instead, you do get a character that's going to end up being very strong overall for all of the fusion characters that you get on your account. And she's gonna be good for Galbrina too. Like I said earlier, you can go Lupa into Mortefi into Galbrina, and that's also going to be a strong setup for you to provide the avenue to invest into Brant Wuthering Waves later on, who is—
I'm gonna be honest though, I don't see that being an actual good thing to do. Right? It's just my opinion, right? I've played the game a lot. I continuously talk to so many people on this, game. We theory craft, we test, we get on VCs, we talk for hours, yada, yada, yada. I don't think that if you're going to get Galbrina, you would want to get Lupa, because you can just get Shi Yuan instead of Lupa and have your Galbrina team done, right? If you get Lupa, you would have a suboptimal Galbrina team, and why would you get Lupa to then get another fusion character like Brant when you already have Galbrina as a hyper carry fusion character, right? It just makes no sense to me, right? Unless that's what you want to do, but in theory, what I'm telling you, it would make no sense, right? You would pull your Lupa with your Galbrina, and then you eventually pull Brant. Now you're sitting here with 3 fusion characters. And what's going on? You have no variety. They're all fusion, and it makes no sense, right? Get Galbrina and get Shi Yuan. Don't get Lupa for your Galbrina. I don't advise that. And while Lupa will hold more value for more fusion characters, if you already have Galbrina as a fusion hyper carry unit, why are you worried about other fusion characters down the line? You don't need to do that. But that's just me. That's my thought regarding that particular offering and that particular strategy behind maybe pulling Lupa.
Also a very strong unit, though keep in mind that those units really want their signatures, and this is where cost comes into play. What I mean by that is that you're going to want to invest into more 5-stars than you would if you went for the Cho Yuen Shorekeeper team, or Verena of course. You get the point. Essentially, Lupa's own damage and Brant's own damage are very relevant, so you would ideally want their signature weapons. And if you don't have Brant Sig, then he drops in value drastically, because it becomes so much harder to build him. You can put him on Blood Pact's Pledge, but you're still missing out on everything that Unflickering Valor gives him within the passive. That weapon is completely tailor-made for him, and we never ended up getting an event weapon that was able to remedy his need for a signature.
And here's another thing, right? Let's say you get Galbrina. Let's say you get Lupa. At that point, let's just consider that you have Shorekeeper at that point, right? While that would be a team, in this scenario that Juice is planting, we would want to get Brant to go with your Lupa, right? That means you would still, theoretically, have to get another character. But if instead of getting Lupa, you got Shi Yuan, your Galbrina team is done. You don't got to get an extra character, an extra signature weapon. Your team is done. And this is coming from someone that is an absolute Brant glazer, probably the #1 Brant fan out there. I love that character, absolute monster of a unit. But if we're being honest and we're being practical and we're actually taking things from an absolute value type of perspective, getting Lupa to then eventually plan to get Brant just so you can rock them with Galbrina when you can just get Shi Yuan and have that core premium team be done, just makes no sense. So don't make that mistake, guys. At the end of the day, waifus is what matters, but this is not about what you like. It's about, optimizing your resources.
Really needs it. So you'd have to consider that that's a character that you would have to fully commit to. Lupa's another one where if you take away the signature, she also loses a lot of her value. So you generally really want signatures for everyone in the team. And Galbrena herself, well, it's a main DPS character, and those generally want their SIGs the most in this game. Any character who has damage as a large part of their value really wants the SIG, and this is why DPSs are basically non-negotiable when it comes to whether you want to get their signature or not. There are some where they can fare better than others, if you don't end up managing to land their signature in time. However, in most cases, you really want to get it.
Yeah.
Whereas with the Choyuan team, Galbrena is mostly the main star of the show, and while you would ideally want Choyuan's weapon, you can still get away with not having it. And sure,
yeah, at the end of the day, when it comes to building your teams, I'm gonna just tell you guys right now, you want your main DPS's weapon. Stop listening to people and content creators and anybody out there telling you, well, actually, this weapon is only 10% weaker. Like, bro, tell them to shut up. These weapons are specific for your characters. You want them to have longevity. You want them to perform at their utmost potential. You want them to be as good as they can possibly be for as long as possible. So get their signature weapons. It doesn't matter if it's only 10% stronger than the second best option. Eventually, that 8% will add up. Will add up if you don't get their second best in slot character, right? Their premium team. And eventually, you'll notice the decline of your unit. So definitely get their weapons. And as you guys know, we did talk about Galbrena's weapon today, and we have a video on the channel, so do be sure to check it out. And Galbrena's weapon is pretty much tailor-made for her. It synchronizes with her kit beautifully. It's going to enable a bunch of crap. It's going to give her heavy attack. It's going to give her skill amplification, skill damage amp. It's going to give her defense, res, reduction, or is going to be able to skip the defense a little bit. So it's going to give you a bunch of crap that is going to synergize with Galbrena so good. So just do yourself a favor, always get your signature weapon for your main DPS. Sub DPS and support, you can get away with running like 4 stars or second, third best options, but yeah, don't do that. Yeah, there we go. Heavy echo skill and defense ignore, which is quite a bit when it comes to a character that revolves around that. So definitely get her weapon for sure.
Keeper's another one where you can just give her variation and you'll get by just fine.
That's another reason why you don't want to get Lupa, right? Because you're talking about getting 2 characters and then you'd have to look into getting their signature weapons. Whereas if you only get Galbrena, you're able to get the signature weapon and then you can save the rest of the pads, continue to explore, continue to get all the rewards and all that good stuff, and then get Shoyuan. It gives you a good amount of time. Let's say you get your Galbrena day 1. From that point forward, you got all your login rewards during the entirety of her banner, all the events, like the 2 or 3 events we're getting in the 2.7. And then you have all the duration of Shoyuan's banner to go ahead and get him. So I think it's much better in every single aspect. I don't think there's any scenario where getting Lupa is better for a beginner player than getting Shoyuan if you're pulling Galbrena.
The cost is inherently lower, and while you are pulling for a more niche unit, he's still going to end up being a good pickup for Furlova, so if you end up being a Furlova fan down the line, then that's another situation in which you're able to use him. And by having a lower cost team to invest into, you're more readily able to prepare yourself to invest into different teams down the line, thus allowing you more flexibility in general. Now, if you're not particularly interested in investing into Lupa or any fusion characters, or you don't really want to invest into Choyuan because he might be a bit too niche for your tastes, then I actually wouldn't get Galbrena as your first DPS.
Look, she said it. I've said it. Anybody that tells you the opposite, don't be like them. Listen, if you're gonna pull a hyper carry DPS, if you're gonna pull a premium DPS, always pull their best in slot characters and their weapons. You can play however the hell you want, and Withering Waves is relatively an easy game. But if you're someone that either has a skill issue or is very casual and don't want to stress, or someone that just wants to clear content as smoothly as possible, always get the best in slot character for your premium unit. So if you're one of those that looks at Shoyuan and is like, that's a guy, I don't want to pull him, just skip Galbrena. Do yourself the favor and skip Galbrena, right? Keep on saving. You might lose out on a little bit of, astrites for not being able to clear, certain aspects of the game like Tower and, well, Whimpering Waste, but just do yourself that favor. Always try to get yourself your premium unit, their weapon, and their best in slot character. And Shou Yuan, while he might not be the most versatile character, he might not be a unit that's going to give you a bunch of utility on multiple different teams, he is a character that's going to be perfectly synced with Galbrina.
Yes, she is strong, and I think that she's not bad by any means. But I would say that there's definitely better DPSs you can go for. Augusta just passed, and she works amazingly with Mortefi. She does enjoy using a Yuno, of course, but she doesn't need her. She ended up being a fantastic, viable, beginner-friendly pull. Yuno?
Yes, Augusta will probably work better for a beginner player than Galbrina, because Augusta, like she said, synergizes perfectly with Mortefi. But the thing is, if you're a beginner, what are you going to do? Wait for Augusta's rerun 6 months from now? No. So, does it matter that Augusta's better? No. Right? It really doesn't matter. You might as well pull Galbrina if you're a beginner player. I'm going to just keep it a stack, right? We might see in 2.8 a character be a main DPS and be better. We have Chisa, right? She might be a better DPS than Galbrina, but the reality of it is that if you're a new player and you get yourself Galbrina, you're not going to regret it. She's going to clear a bunch of content. She's going to allow you to get a bunch of astrites from the tower, from maybe the first few stages of Whimpering Waste, giving you more currency as time goes on, and you'll pretty much be done with one team. Being able to be done with one team in this game, if you get her and Shou Yuan, is a huge thing. It allows you to start planning and setting up for future teams, and I think that's a much better option. It doesn't matter if Augusta's a better option than her. You're not going to wait for reruns. It doesn't matter if, Yuno is a better option. If you didn't get her, you're not going to wait, 5 months until they rerun her. Same for any other character. You might hear that Cardathea might be a better option. Well, you're not going to wait until she reruns. And even if she reruns next, what about Siakona if you don't have her? Don't listen to those people that tell you you can run your Cardathea with Sanhua. Just block them from your YouTube feed. And at the end of the day, guys, I think that as a new player, Galbrina is definitely the best option you can do, because her banner is great. Shou Yuan is good for her. And even if you don't get your Shou Yuan, eventually you're going to be able to get characters like Brandt, which will go great with her. Eventually on another rerun, maybe even Lupa if you want. But honestly, I wouldn't go that route.
While she does ideally want a 5-star teammate to work with, much like Galbrina, her options are far more versatile, and she has so many different teams in which she's able to work well. Very strong character that's even able to act as a main DPS herself and offers you multiple investment avenues. I find that with Galbrina, whenever you get her first, it's pretty rigid in which direction you're able to go. Now, both directions are good, but you should also keep in mind that you just generally have other options when it comes to fusion characters. For example, if you do end up getting an Encore, you could get Lupa instead, have her as your fusion support for a hot minute, it's going to work just fine for you, and then...
That's a crazy thing to say. I'm gonna be honest, look. I feel that I don't know. It could just be me. It could just be my way of seeing the game. But I do not think that pulling a Lupa for your Encore is a good thing. Like, the way I see it, right? You would pull Lupa for an Encore. You would play like shit until you eventually get a rerun on Brandt. At that point, you would have had to pull 2 units, both of which are not main DPSs, right? Brandt does damage, especially with the Lupa on the team, but let's be real, Brandt and Lupa together are not going to deal the same damage as, for example, Augusta Yuno. And most likely, they won't deal the same amount of damage as probably Galbrina and Shou Yuan. So, I don't see any place where bro, look, y'all know me, but I honestly don't think that getting Lupa in this scenario for a beginner player, in any sort of scenario, is a good choice, right? It doesn't matter, the simple thing is that if we're talking about that you can get Galbrina, and then you can pair her up with like a Verena, and you'll clear content a lot smoother, or a lot easier than if you were to get Lupa for your Encore. It's more important to get a solid, functioning main DPS than a sub DPS and wait down the line to get another character. So just don't do that, bro. You do not want to be playing with Encore at max level. You don't even want to waste the resources to level up your Encore when you have another strong fusion option on the team. That's just me. Any way that I see it going for Lupa, it almost makes me want to do a whole video as to why you shouldn't pull for Lupa if you're a beginner player, right? And we could argue about that. There's gonna be people in the chat, in the freaking comments coming at me. Well, Lupa has so much value. Look, listen, shut the fuck up. I'm telling you exactly why I don't think that's a good reason for a beginner player. Feel free to come to the stream. We can chat it up, and we could see what you're cooking. It probably gonna stink like shit, and it's gonna be burnt, but we can see what you're cooking. But in all reality, I don't think that there's any scenario where pulling Lupa right now as a beginner player with no other fusion characters on your account holds more value than pulling a Galbrina. I can't possibly think of an option. But if you guys can, let me know in the comments.
Eventually complete the triple fusion core down the line, and you're gonna be pretty happy with that. It is a very strong team core. She's definitely no Phoebe. I feel...
Okay, so completing the triple fusion core. I'm gonna be honest with you. You gotta pull 3 characters. You're gonna have to pull Lupa, you're gonna have to pull Brandt, and you're gonna have to pull Shangli. That's the triple fusion premium fusion team right now. 3 characters that you gotta summon for, right? Whereas if you pull Galbrina and show Yuen, that's the team. That's the premium Galbrina team, and then you could go ahead and run it with your shorekeeper that you're gonna get as a beginner player from your beginner banner. So pulling 2 characters versus pulling 3. On top of that, you can go ahead and not get the signature weapon for shorekeeper, maybe not even get the signature weapon for Show Yuen, and only get the signature for Galbrina. Whereas if we look at the premium fusion team, you most likely definitely want to get the premium weapon for Brandt, you want to get the premium weapon for Lupa, and you probably want to get the premium weapon for Shangli to make sure her damage is up there, because her damage as a main DPS is already lacking a little bit. But once again, I'm telling you, I'm ready to dismantle anything regarding why Lupa would be a good option if you're a new player. And I have Lupa S6R5. I love Lupa. I would eat her butt, and she's a furry. I don't care. But it just makes no sense.
I feel like we're just never really gonna get another 5-star character that is as free-to-play friendly as Phoebe, because the stars simply aligned for that character to be ridiculously viable for a new player. Yes, she does suffer in Wiwa without Shakona in Absolution form, however, she is still generally just so solid with how she's able to use freaking Spectra over on Sanhua and actually get away with it. But you also have to consider that there's more realistic cases like Augusta, or even like Carlotta, who's able to use Static Mist and still feel extremely strong, that can honestly end up feeling like better beginner pulls.
Bro, I don't know. There's a lot of things I'm not agreeing with in this video. Look, listen, Carlotta was the first 2.0 character. Carlotta is great. Carlotta feels smooth to play. Carlotta has the ability to freeze their target and then style on them hoes. Carlotta is great. But she was the first 2.0 character. And no matter what other people tell you, as these units have, progress and have dropped, the reality of it is that certain units, you can feel the way they're performing. You can see their damage and feel that they're, they're starting to, slow down, fall behind a little bit. Even if it's not a lot, they are starting to, fall behind. And I will always advise people, for the most part, to always pull the newest units for longevity, right? If we talk about 6 months from now, which unit, for the most part, do you think will have more longevity? The one that's a year old by then, or the one that's only 6 months old? For the most part, the one that's 6 months old will still be kicking and clearing content with no problem. So I don't think Carlotta is a unit that you should go for over something like Galbrina. And on top of the fact, we don't know when her rerun is going to be. So once again, as a new player, you're sitting here waiting for all these other better options to rerun, and you don't know when that's going to happen. Galbrina is absolutely the best option from 2.7. Without a doubt. It's just that simple.
Do I think that Galbrina is worth your asteroids if you're somebody that's newer, or you just generally don't have a lot of teams? The thing is, you want 4 strong teams for TOA anyway, so yes, she's just going to end up being worth it by virtue of you needing more DPSs. But I think that whenever you consider her investment in the long term, and how her investment path is a bit more niche compared to some other DPS's investment paths, perhaps you might want to reconsider. Obviously, you don't really want to go weeks and weeks without having a good new main DPS, understandable. And I will say that if you have literally no good limited 5-star main DPS, Galbrina is going to be fine. You have a shorekeeper, hopefully. You'll hopefully have a more Teffy. It will work. Because
Another thing I want to add is that people shouldn't worry about how niche a specific unit is nowadays, right? Because the reality of it is that if we're talking about endgame content and you're using a unit to clear any of the endgame content, let's talk about tower, you would use that one character to clear one side of tower. If we're talking about middle tower, you would use that unit to clear 2 floors. You use all your units to clear the other content, right? The other side of the tower or the other 2 floors. So even if a character is very niche and you can pair it with a bunch of other, it's not like you're going to be doing that anyway, unless you just want to have fun and are experimenting and doing like random holograms, random tower. But in all reality, you're going to get your character, you're going to run it with the 1 or 2 best in slot characters to run with that unit, and that's it. You're not going to be sitting here trying to like create, oh, I'm going to run Augusta with Cantarella and see how that works. No, it doesn't matter if a character can run with 5, 6, 7 other characters. You're usually going to want to run it with their best in slot or the second best in slot option, and that's it, right? And while Galbrina might not have a lot of characters that can give her both heavy attack and echo skill damage buffs, the reality of it is that she has plenty of characters that can give her heavy attack buffs, fusion buffs, and she is going to have her premium character running relatively soon. So there's a lot of options for Galbrina if you want, right? If you end up skipping Shou Yuan, once again, you can go down the line and get Brant, right? And I think getting Brant for your Galbrina team is a better option. I understand wanting to pull like Lupa, right? But if you use Lupa with Galbrina and you use it in one side of tower, you're not going to have energy to use it on the other side of tower. If you use it to clear 2 floors, you're not going to have energy to use that Lupa in another team. So I don't know, man. Personally, I think that that particular aspect of it being very niche shouldn't matter. We're at the point where characters like Augusta, while she does have options she can run, she has very specific teammates that you want to use with her to maximize the way she plays. The same with Yuno. Yuno is an amazing character that can rock in multiple teams, but she has a niche teammate that you want to rock with her to maximize her potential. So I don't think that's a problem, the fact that she's niche. I think it's absolutely fine. I don't think it's ever been a problem apart from very few characters like Zani, because Zani's kit is kind of bricked. But yeah.
Zani on the second half just isn't going to do anything for you if you don't have Phoebe.
I said Zani right away and she went into Zani, bro. So
I am really going to stress that. If you're not sure who to get between those two in terms of a main DPS, please just get Galbrina. It is not worth pulling for Zani unless you are certain that you can get Phoebe next time. And
even then, guys, even if you get Zani because you like her design, not only are you going to be actually struggling and not having a good time playing because it's a lot more restrictive and a lot more sweaty to play with Zani and S Rover, but you don't know when Peeves is going to rerun, and 2, you have the option between a very solid DPS that I already know plays very good, that has a lot of options to run with, versus another DPS that has like one really good option and then the second option is stressful to play with. So there's no scenario where getting Zani is better than getting Galbrina. Like I told you guys, in terms of value, I would dare say, if we're looking at it like this, all the 2.7 units, number 1 is Galbrina, easily. Number 2 is Lupa. Number 3 is Shou Yuan, and Shou Yuan could even go lower if you don't get Galbrina, right? And then number 4 is Zani, and that's very simple. It's very straightforward, just like that.
Is just not going to feel good for you until you're able to get that Acolyte, because Confession Phoebe is such an integral part to Zani's main team. So if you're that strapped for a good DPS, then yes, just get Galbrina. Don't even look at Zani if you're not going to get Phoebe down the line. But looking at things from a wider perspective, at least I personally think that while she's not exactly as beginner-friendly as Augusta and Yuno ended up being, she's definitely not on the unfriendly side either. I think she is good, she is a fine beginner pickup. Just keep in mind that there are particular 5 stars that she would like down the line if you would like her to eventually reach her top potential, and she will always be relevant for you if you're just getting her as one of your first few DPSs, because side towers are a thing, she will always have a use case, but if you're hoping to keep her in middle towers, do prepare to make some more niche investments down the line.
I'm gonna be honest, I think that's really all that needs to be said regarding the video, and I think that I spoke my mind as best as I can, right? This is a beginner video, right? For beginner players. Just get Galbrina, right? you can go ahead and skip her if you don't like her design, if you don't like her gameplay. It's absolutely valid. But if we're talking about you considering which unit to pull and you're dead set on pulling a character, by all means get Galbrina. You won't regret it, right? Don't worry about the whole niche thing. The way we're going, all characters are going to end up being a lot more niche. And it's not even like that shit is something new. Look at Zani. Zani, you want to run her with Peebs. It's simple. Cardathea, you want to run her with Siakona. And stop listening to the people that tell you, yes, there's more options to a lot of these teams. There are. You can run Spectral Rover with Zani. You're not going to have fun. You can go ahead and run Sanhua with, you know, Cardathea. That shit kind of ass. So, honestly, all characters are heading in a direction that they're being more niche. They're making sure that characters synergize very well with each other, so that's not a problem. Once again, Lupa is not a character you want to pull if you don't have any other units. You don't want to pull Lupa to pair up with your freaking Encore, because that team's gonna feel like crap. And honestly, Encore's already, you know, she ain't gonna be doing it like that. You don't want to pull Lupa to, you know, wait, I don't know, 2-3 months, I don't know how long until they rerun Brandt, because Lupa Brandt is probably going to be a worse team than Galbrina Show Yuan in terms of clearing content, even though that one team, you know, Lupa Brandt can still clear content. I'm pretty sure that, you know, Galbrina Show Yuan can clear it better. And yeah, that's just it for me, guys. Let me know who you're pulling in the 2.7 update. I actually do think that Galbrina is a great investment for new players. I think her banner holds a lot of value because of the fact that you can get Mortefi and Sanhua. So there's a lot of things going on when it comes to this character. Could she be bait? Maybe. We're right around the corner of 3.0. In 2.8, we're going to get to see what characters are coming in 3.0. But yeah, man, that's it for me. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.